There is a silent addiction inside the human mind. It is called worry. You believe it keeps you safe. You believe it makes you responsible. You believe it prepares you for danger. But what if it is doing the opposite? What if the very thing you think protects you is quietly draining your life force? Most people wake up already tense. Their bodies are here, but their minds are racing ahead into imaginary futures. They rehearse disasters that have not arrived. They suffer conversations that have not happened. They fear outcomes that may never exist, and they call this being prepared. The Buddha saw something radical. He saw that worry is not wisdom. It is attachment wearing the mask of intelligence. It is the ego trying to control impermanence. And the more you feed it, the weaker your peace becomes. Today, you are going to see clearly why you do not have to worry anymore, not because life will become perfect, but because you will finally understand how the mind has been deceiving you. 1. Your worry is an illusion of power and it's draining your life. Worry tricks you into believing you are being productive. When you replay situations in your mind, imagine worst-case scenarios or prepare for every possible outcome, it feels like you are taking responsibility. It feels like you are staying ahead. Your mind tells you, if I think about this enough, I'll be ready. If I analyze every detail, I can prevent disaster. That feeling creates a false sense of control. It feels like power. But pause for a moment and ask yourself honestly, how many times has worrying actually changed the outcome of something? Did it stop the difficult conversation from happening? Did it prevent the rejection? Did it remove uncertainty from your life? Most of the time, worry only made you suffer before anything even occurred. It exhausted you emotionally and mentally long before reality unfolded. The Buddha explained that attachment is the root of suffering. Worry is a subtle form of attachment. It is the mind clinging to a preferred future and resisting the possibility that things may not go exactly as planned. It is like gripping water in your hands. The tighter you hold, the more it slips away. You believe that by mentally controlling the future, you can shape it. But life does not respond to mental tension. It moves according to many forces beyond your thoughts. While you are worrying, your body is paying the price. Your shoulders tighten, your breathing becomes shallow, your sleep becomes restless. Your heart carries stress that has no real event attached to it. You drain your energy fighting imaginary battles. That is not strength. That is slow self-sabotage. Real power is different. Real power is staying present. It is focusing on what you can actually do right now, instead of trying to manage what does not yet exist. When you see clearly that worry is not control but fear pretending to be control, something shifts inside you. You begin to relax. And in that relaxation, you discover a quiet strength that is far more powerful than anxiety ever was. 2. You are suffering from events that have never happened. One of the strangest things about the human mind is that it can create real pain from unreal situations. You imagine losing something and your chest feels tight. You imagine failing and your stomach sinks. You imagine someone rejecting you and your mood drops instantly. Nothing has happened, yet your body reacts as if it already did. This is how worry steals your peace. Your mind creates a future scene and treats it as reality. It plays a movie of what if over and over again, and you emotionally step inside that movie. You feel fear, sadness, and stress for something that exists only in thought. The Buddha encouraged direct awareness of the present moment. He asked a simple but powerful question: what is happening right now? Not tomorrow, not next week, right now. Most of the time, in this exact moment, you are safe, you are breathing, you are alive. The disaster you fear is not here. It exists only as a mental projection. This does not mean challenges will never come. Life will always have uncertainty, but worrying forces you to experience pain before it arrives. And often, the reality is far less dramatic than your imagination predicted. You do not need to suffer from stories your mind invents. You can come back to what is real. And what is real, in most moments, is manageable. When you stop living in imagined futures, you reclaim the calm that has always been available to you. 3. You survived 100% of your worst days. Why don't you trust that? Think about the hardest days of your life. The moments when you felt completely overwhelmed, the heartbreak that made your chest feel heavy, the failure that embarrassed you, the uncertainty that kept you awake at night. At that time, it felt unbearable. It felt like you would never recover. Your mind told you, "This is too much. I can't handle this." But look at you now. You are still here. Every single day that once felt impossible, you survived. Every storm that once terrified you eventually passed. The emotions that felt permanent slowly faded. The pain that seemed endless softened with time. You adapted. You learned. You grew stronger, even if you did not notice it happening. Yet when a new problem appears, your mind acts as if you have no history of resilience. It reacts as if this time will be different. It whispers, "What if this breaks you?" But that voice ignores all the evidence of your strength. You have a 100% survival rate for your worst days. That is not luck. That is proof of your capacity. The Buddha taught about impermanence, that everything changes. The worst moments of your past changed. The fear passed. The pain shifted. Even the situations that felt like endings became turning points in your story. But when you worry about the future, you forget this truth. You forget that whatever comes will also change. Trust does not mean believing nothing difficult will ever happen. It means believing that when difficulty arrives, you will meet it the same way you always have, step by step, breath by breath. You did not survive your past because you worried perfectly. You survived because you endured. Instead of asking, "What if I can't handle it?" ask yourself a more honest question. When have I not handled it? Your life itself is the answer. You are stronger than your fear gives you credit for, and remembering that is the beginning of trust. 4. The more you try to control life, the more it controls you. Control feels safe. It gives you the illusion that if you plan carefully enough, think deeply enough, and prepare for every possible outcome, nothing will go wrong. You tell yourself that control equals security, that if you can manage every detail, you will finally relax. But look closely at your experience. Has control really given you peace? Or has it made you more anxious? The more you try to control life, the more sensitive you become to anything that goes wrong. A small delay frustrates you. A change of plan irritates you. Someone's unexpected behavior unsettles you. Why? Because your mind had already decided how things were supposed to unfold, and when reality does not follow your script, you suffer. The Buddha taught that attachment to outcomes is one of the deepest roots of suffering. When you cling to how life must look, how people must behave, how the future must turn out, you create a rigid mental structure. And life is not rigid. Life is movement. It is change. It is uncertainty. It flows in ways you cannot fully predict. Trying to control life is like trying to control the ocean with your hands. You may feel powerful for a moment, but the waves will continue to move regardless of your effort. And the more you resist the waves, the more exhausted you become. The ocean is not your enemy. Your resistance to it is what tires you. Ironically, the tighter you grip control, the more life controls your emotions. Your peace becomes dependent on circumstances going your way. Your happiness becomes conditional. You are calm only when everything is predictable. But predictability is not how existence works. Change is constant. Uncertainty is natural. When you finally accept that you cannot control everything, something surprising happens. You begin to feel lighter. You still take responsibility for your actions. You still plan. You still prepare. But you release the demand that reality must obey you. You focus on what is truly yours to manage your effort, your attitude, your response. This is where real strength appears, not in forcing life to fit your expectations, but in adapting when it does not. Think of water. Water does not fight the shape of the container it enters. It adjusts. It flows. It moves around obstacles instead of crashing against them endlessly. That flexibility is power. The more you try to control every outcome, the more fragile you become. But the more you learn to move with life instead of against it, the more stable you feel inside. Because now your peace is not based on external certainty, it is based on inner adaptability. Letting go of control does not mean giving up. It means understanding the difference between what you can influence and what you cannot. It means acting wisely where you have power and surrendering where you do not. When you stop trying to dominate life, life stops feeling like something you must fight, and in that shift, you discover a freedom that control could never give you. 5. Your mind is lying to you, and you keep believing it. Your mind speaks with authority. It does not whisper gently. It declares. It tells you what will go wrong. It tells you who might leave. It tells you that you are not ready, not capable, not strong enough. It predicts embarrassment before you try. It predicts rejection before you speak. It predicts failure before you begin. And because this voice comes from inside your own head, you assume it must be true. But here is the uncomfortable truth. Your mind is not always telling the truth. It is telling stories, and most of those stories are shaped by fear. The mind's primary job is survival. It evolved to detect danger. Thousands of years ago, this was useful. If you heard a sound in the forest, assuming it was a threat kept you alive. But today, the same mechanism reacts to emails like they are predators. It reacts to uncertainty like it is life-threatening. It exaggerates risks. It magnifies small problems. It prepares you for disasters that rarely happen. Notice how quickly your mind jumps to the worst possible outcome. If someone does not reply to your message, the mind says they are upset. If you make a small mistake, the mind says you are incompetent. If something feels uncertain, the mind says it will collapse completely. It does not present balanced options. It presents extremes. And you believe it. You rarely stop to question it. You treat every anxious thought as a warning. You treat every fearful prediction as evidence. But thoughts are not facts. They are mental events. They appear, stay for a moment, and disappear just like clouds passing through the sky. The Buddha taught the practice of observing the mind without identifying with it. He encouraged awareness, the ability to watch thoughts without becoming them. When you sit quietly and simply observe your thinking, you begin to see something shocking. The mind contradicts itself constantly. One moment it says, "You will fail." The next moment it says, "You might succeed." One moment it says, "They don't like you." The next moment it says, "Maybe they do." It shifts endlessly. If the mind changes its story every hour, why do you treat its darkest version as absolute truth? Your mind often lies by predicting certainty where there is none. It says, "This will definitely go wrong." But it does not know that. It is guessing. It says, "You can't handle this." But your entire life proves otherwise. It says, "You will regret this forever." But you have survived regret before. The most dangerous part is not that the mind lies. The most dangerous part is that you rarely question it. You assume that because you thought it, it must be valid. But thinking something does not make it real. When you begin to separate yourself from your thoughts, something powerful happens. Instead of saying, "I am going to fail," you start noticing, "I am having the thought that I might fail." That small shift creates distance, and in that distance, fear loses intensity. You realize that the voice in your head is not your master. It is a tool, and like any tool, it can be useful or harmful depending on how you use it. You do not have to believe every thought that appears. You can question it, you can challenge it, you can let it pass without reacting. When you stop blindly trusting the fearful voice, you reclaim your inner authority. And when you reclaim that authority, worry begins to weaken, because worry survives on belief. Once you stop believing every fearful prediction, its power over you fades. Your mind may continue to speak, it may continue to warn, exaggerate, and imagine, but now you see it clearly. And when you see clearly, you are no longer controlled by what you observe. That clarity is freedom. 6. Letting go is not weakness, it is a spiritual upgrade. Letting go is one of the most misunderstood ideas in the human experience. Most people hear the words and immediately feel resistance. They associate letting go with failure. They associate it with defeat. They imagine it means giving up on goals, lowering standards, or accepting less than they deserve. Because of this misunderstanding, they cling tighter. They hold on to relationships that are draining them, to expectations that are suffocating them, to fears that are exhausting them. They believe that if they loosen their grip, everything will fall apart. But what they do not realize is that everything is already falling apart inside them because of that tight grip. The need to control is often disguised as responsibility. You tell yourself that you are just being careful. You say that you are just thinking ahead. You believe that worrying about every detail proves that you care deeply. But caring and clinging are not the same thing. You can care deeply without mentally strangling the outcome. You can work hard without tying your identity to the result. You can love someone without trying to manage their every move. The suffering begins when caring turns into control. The Buddha observed that attachment is the root of suffering because attachment is a demand placed on a changing world. Everything in life is in motion. People change, circumstances change, emotions change. Even your own desires change. When you attach yourself rigidly to how something must unfold, you create a silent war between your expectations and reality. That war is exhausting. It creates anxiety, frustration, and disappointment. You are not tired because life is heavy. You are tired because you are resisting the natural flow of life. Letting go does not mean that you stop trying. It means you stop forcing. It means you give your full effort to what is within your influence and release your emotional attachment to what is not. There is a profound difference between effort and attachment. Effort is healthy, attachment is suffocating. Effort says, "I will do my best." Attachment says, "This must go my way or I will suffer." One is grounded in strength, the other is rooted in fear. Think about how much mental energy you spend replaying situations in your head. You imagine conversations before they happen. You anticipate rejection before it occurs. You analyze every possible outcome as if you are trying to prevent the universe from surprising you. But no amount of mental rehearsal can eliminate uncertainty. Life will always contain unknowns. The more you attempt to eliminate them, the more anxious you become. You begin to feel like you are constantly bracing for impact, even when nothing is happening in front of you. Letting go is the moment you stop bracing. It is the moment you exhale after holding your breath for years. It is the realization that you were never meant to control every variable. You were meant to navigate them with awareness. You were meant to adapt, not dominate. When you try to dominate life, you become rigid, and rigidity breaks under pressure. But when you allow flexibility into your mind, you become resilient. You bend instead of shatter. This is why letting go is a spiritual upgrade. It elevates you from reacting unconsciously to responding consciously. It shifts you from living in fear of loss to living in trust of your own strength. It teaches you that your peace does not have to depend on perfect circumstances. It shows you that your identity is not tied to a single outcome, a single relationship, or a single version of success. When you let go, you do not lose control of your life. You gain control of your inner world. You stop allowing external events to dictate your emotional stability. You stop allowing uncertainty to steal your sleep. You stop allowing imagined futures to rob your present moment. Instead, you begin to live with openness. You take action with focus, but you release the tension around the result. You understand that outcomes are influenced by many forces beyond your personal effort, and you accept that reality with humility rather than resistance. Letting go requires courage, because it means trusting yourself more than your fear. It means believing that even if things do not unfold exactly as you hope, you will adapt. It means understanding that your strength lies not in controlling life, but in facing it as it comes. You begin to see that every time you clung tightly in the past, you suffered more. And every time you eventually released, peace returned. The paradox of letting go is that when you stop forcing life, life feels lighter. Your decisions become clearer because they are no longer clouded by panic. Your relationships become healthier because they are no longer suffocated by control. Your mind becomes quieter because it is no longer trying to manage every possibility. You discover that true power is not about domination, it is about alignment. Alignment means working with life instead of against it. It means understanding that impermanence is not your enemy. It is the nature of existence. When you accept impermanence, you stop demanding guarantees. And when you stop demanding guarantees, anxiety begins to dissolve. You were never meant to carry the entire future in your thoughts. You were never meant to manage every outcome. You were meant to show up fully in this moment, act wisely, and allow life to unfold. That is not weakness. That is wisdom. That is evolution. That is the spiritual upgrade that transforms worry into trust and tension into quiet confidence. When you finally understand this deeply, letting go no longer feels like loss. It feels like freedom. 7. When you finally stop worrying, life finally starts working. There is a subtle shift that happens the moment you truly stop worrying, and it is not dramatic or loud. It does not arrive with fireworks or instant perfection. It arrives quietly, like a deep breath after years of shallow breathing. For most of your life, you have believed that worry is necessary. You have believed that tension keeps you sharp, that anxiety keeps you alert, that mental pressure keeps you prepared. You thought that if you stopped worrying, everything would collapse. But the truth is the opposite. When you finally stop worrying, life does not collapse. It begins to cooperate with you in ways you never noticed before. Worry creates internal resistance. It is like trying to drive a car with the brake slightly pressed at all times. You are moving forward, but everything feels harder than it needs to be. Decisions feel heavier, conversations feel more stressful. Opportunities feel risky. Even small tasks feel overwhelming because your mind is already tired from fighting imaginary futures. When you are constantly worrying, your perception narrows. You see threats more easily than possibilities. You focus on what could go wrong more than what could go right. You become so busy protecting yourself from pain that you block yourself from growth. The Buddha understood something profound about the human mind. He understood that suffering is not created only by events, but by resistance to events. Worry is resistance in advance. It is the mind arguing with reality before reality has even spoken. It is preparing for battle in a war that may never happen. When you are in this constant state of mental defense, you are not living freely. You are surviving psychologically in situations that do not yet exist. When you stop worrying, you stop arguing with the future. You stop trying to outthink uncertainty. You stop attempting to control outcomes that are shaped by countless causes beyond your awareness. And in that stopping, something powerful happens. Your mind clears. Your energy returns. Your perception widens. You begin to notice details that anxiety once blurred. You begin to hear intuition that worry once drowned out. Life begins to work, not because circumstances magically improve, but because your relationship with them transforms. When you are not consumed by fear of what might happen, you respond more intelligently to what is happening. You listen more carefully, you act more thoughtfully. You are less reactive and more intentional. This shift alone changes outcomes more than years of anxious overthinking ever could. Consider how many opportunities you have hesitated on because of worry. How many times did you hold back your voice because you feared rejection? How many times did you delay starting something because you feared failure? Worry does not protect you from failure. It often guarantees inaction, and inaction quietly builds regret. When you release worry, you release hesitation. You allow yourself to step forward even without certainty. That courage opens doors that anxiety kept closed. When you stop worrying, your body changes as well. Your breathing deepens, your muscles soften, your nervous system relaxes. This physical shift is not small. A calm body supports a clear mind. A clear mind supports wise action. Wise action produces better results. In this way, life begins to feel smoother, not because it is easier, but because you are no longer fighting it internally. There is also a deeper truth hidden here. Worry often comes from mistrust. It comes from the belief that you will not be able to handle what comes next. It comes from doubting your own resilience. But look at your life honestly. Every challenge you faced felt uncertain at first, yet you navigated them. You adapted. You endured. You learned. The evidence of your capability is written in your history. When you stop worrying, you are not ignoring risk. You are acknowledging your ability to meet it. Trust does not mean blind optimism. It means grounded confidence. It means recognizing that while you cannot control every outcome, you can control your response. It means understanding that even if life surprises you, you will adjust. This trust creates inner stability, and from stability comes effectiveness. The paradox is that when you are less desperate for things to go a certain way, they often unfold more naturally. When you stop clinging to a specific result, you become flexible. Flexibility allows creativity. Creativity allows problem solving. Problem solving produces progress. Worry blocks this entire chain because it narrows your thinking into fear-based patterns. Life begins to work when you align with reality instead of resisting it. Alignment means accepting uncertainty as part of existence. It means understanding that change is constant. It means acting fully in the present moment without demanding guarantees from the future. When you live this way, you conserve energy that would otherwise be wasted in anxiety. That conserved energy becomes focus. That focus becomes momentum. You also begin to experience relationships differently. When you are not constantly worried about losing someone, you show up more authentically. You stop trying to control how others see you. You stop overanalyzing every interaction. You become more relaxed, and that relaxation invites trust. People feel safer around someone who is not mentally calculating every outcome. In this way, letting go of worries strengthens connection rather than weakening it. Even your failures change in meaning. When you are not attached to perfection, failure becomes feedback instead of catastrophe. You learn faster because you are not paralyzed by fear. You recover quicker because you are not carrying layers of imagined disaster on top of real experience. Life feels dynamic instead of threatening. When you finally stop worrying, you begin to live in the present instead of in mental projections. The present moment is where real action happens. It is where conversations occur. It is where decisions are made. It is where opportunities appear. When you are mentally absent because you are preoccupied with imagined futures, you miss what is right in front of you. When you return to presence, you begin to see clearly. Clarity changes everything. Clarity allows you to distinguish between what requires action and what requires acceptance. Clarity allows you to see when your mind is exaggerating. Clarity allows you to step forward calmly instead of reacting impulsively. This calm strength is what makes life feel cooperative rather than chaotic. The truth is that life has always been unfolding according to countless interconnected factors. Your constant worry has never been the force holding the universe together. It has only been exhausting you. When you stop believing that your anxiety is necessary for survival, you free yourself from an invisible prison. You realize that you can participate in life without constantly bracing for impact. There will still be challenges. There will still be unexpected turns, but you will meet them differently. You will meet them without pre-suffering. You will meet them with grounded presence, and presence is powerful. Presence allows you to respond intelligently rather than react emotionally. This is what it means when life finally starts working. It means your inner state is no longer in conflict with reality. It means you are flowing with change rather than fighting it. It means your peace is not postponed until everything is perfect. It exists now, even in uncertainty. When you stop worrying, you stop living as if disaster is inevitable. You begin living as if growth is possible. That shift alone transforms your entire experience. You become more courageous, more adaptable, more creative. You trust that whatever arrives, you will meet it. And that trust changes the way life unfolds around you. Because the world often mirrors your inner state. When you move with fear, you see fear everywhere. When you move with calm, you notice opportunity. When you move with trust, you invite possibility. You do not have to worry anymore. Not because life is predictable, but because you are capable. Not because nothing will go wrong, but because you can handle what does. Not because uncertainty disappears, but because you are no longer threatened by it. When you finally release the illusion that worry is necessary, you discover something liberating. Life was never waiting for your anxiety to function properly. It was waiting for your presence. And the moment you offer it that presence, everything begins to feel aligned. 8. Trusting life is not blind faith, it is deep understanding. Trusting life does not mean closing your eyes and hoping everything will magically turn out the way you want. It is not denial, it is not naive optimism, it is not pretending that pain does not exist. Trusting life is something far more grounded and powerful. It is the deep understanding that existence moves according to laws much larger than your personal fears, and that you are part of that movement, not separate from it. Most of your worry comes from the belief that you are alone against an unpredictable world. You feel as if you must constantly calculate, predict, and prepare, because if you do not, you will be overwhelmed. This belief creates tension. It makes life feel like a battlefield. It makes uncertainty feel like an enemy. But the Buddha saw something different. He saw that life is not against you. It is unfolding through you. Everything in nature operates without anxiety. The seasons change without worry. The sun rises without fear of clouds. Trees do not stress about when they will bloom. Rivers do not panic about the shape of the land. They flow according to their nature. Yet human beings, gifted with imagination, create endless internal conflict by resisting what is already in motion. Trusting life begins with recognizing impermanence. Everything changes. This truth is not meant to scare you, it is meant to free you. The pain you fear will change. The uncertainty you dread will shift. Even the situation you are currently worrying about will not remain exactly as it is. Change is constant. When you truly accept this, you stop demanding that things stay fixed. Worry is often an attempt to freeze the future into something safe and predictable, but safety in the external world is never permanent. What is permanent is your ability to adapt. You have been adapting since the day you were born. You learned to walk without knowing how. You learned to speak without fully understanding language. You survived heartbreaks you once thought would destroy you. You navigated failures that once felt unbearable. This adaptability is not an accident. It is part of your design. Trusting life means trusting this adaptability within you. It means understanding that even when you do not know how something will unfold, you will figure it out step by step. You do not need the entire map of the future. You only need clarity in this moment. When you walk through a dark path with a small light, you cannot see the entire road ahead, but you can see enough for the next step, and when you take that step, the light moves forward with you. Life works the same way. Clarity arrives through movement, not through overthinking. When you sit still in fear, demanding total certainty before acting, you remain stuck. But when you move with trust, even in small ways, understanding unfolds naturally. Trust also means accepting that not everything will go according to your preferences. This is where many people struggle. They think trusting life means believing that everything will always go smoothly. But trust is not about smoothness. It is about resilience. It is about knowing that even when things do not unfold as planned, they can still serve your growth. Think about past experiences that felt like setbacks at the time. A rejection that redirected you, a failure that taught you discipline, a loss that forced you to discover inner strength. At the moment, those events felt unfair or painful, but later you may have seen how they shaped you. Life often works in ways that are only clear in hindsight. When you worry excessively, you interrupt this natural unfolding. You demand immediate answers. You demand reassurance before reality has revealed its lesson. But growth does not operate on your timeline. It operates on a broader rhythm. Trusting life also changes the way you experience fear. Fear does not disappear completely, but it no longer controls you. You see fear as a passing signal rather than a final verdict. You recognize that the mind exaggerates uncertainty to protect you, but protection does not require paralysis, it requires awareness. When you deeply trust life, you begin to loosen your grip on outcomes. You still care, you still act, you still prepare, but you no longer attach your entire emotional stability to a single result. You understand that your peace is more important than perfection. You realize that your identity is not dependent on one success or one failure. This realization creates immense freedom. Freedom from constant mental tension. Freedom from needing everyone's approval. Freedom from the illusion that you must predict every possible scenario. In this freedom, you begin to experience life more directly. You taste moments more fully. You listen more attentively. You appreciate small details that anxiety once overshadowed. Trust also improves your decision-making. When you are not clouded by panic, you think more clearly. You see options instead of only threats. You respond rather than react. This calm intelligence often leads to better outcomes than anxious over-analysis ever could. There is also a spiritual dimension to trust. When you observe existence closely, you notice patterns of balance. Day follows night. Difficulty is followed by relief. Effort produces results over time. Actions create consequences. These patterns operate whether you worry about them or not. Recognizing this larger order creates humility. It reminds you that you are part of something vast and interconnected. This humility softens the ego's need for control. It reduces the pressure you place on yourself to manage everything. It invites you to participate in life rather than dominate it. When you stop fighting uncertainty, you begin to experience it as possibility instead of danger. Uncertainty means new paths are still open. It means outcomes are not fixed. It means growth is still available. The same unknown that scares you also contains opportunity. Trusting life does not eliminate challenges. It transforms your relationship with them. Challenges become teachers instead of threats. Delays become redirections instead of disasters. Impermanence becomes a reminder to appreciate what is present instead of fearing its loss. As you deepen this trust, your internal dialogue changes. Instead of asking, "What if everything goes wrong?" you begin asking, "What if I can handle whatever happens?" Instead of assuming disaster, you allow space for possibility. Instead of bracing for impact, you move with awareness. This shift is not instant. It is cultivated through observation and practice. Each time you notice worry rising and choose presence instead, you strengthen trust. Each time you act despite uncertainty, you reinforce confidence. Each time you survive difficulty, you gather evidence that you are capable. Over time, trust becomes your default state rather than fear. You begin to live with quiet confidence. Not arrogance, not denial, but steady inner stability. You understand that life will continue to change, and you will continue to adapt. You no longer waste energy fighting what cannot be controlled. You invest energy in what can be influenced: your effort, your attitude, your awareness. This is what it means to truly stop worrying. It is not the absence of thought, it is the presence of understanding. It is the recognition that life has always been moving, always been evolving, always been guiding you through experiences that shape you. You are not separate from this process, you are an expression of it. When you trust life, you trust yourself because you are part of life. The same intelligence that moves the seasons moves through your growth. The same impermanence that shifts circumstances strengthens your resilience. And when this realization becomes real to you, something profound happens. You no longer feel like you are surviving against the world. You feel like you are moving with it. In that movement, worry loses its grip. In that understanding, peace becomes natural. And in that peace, life truly begins to work in ways you never allowed yourself to see before. 9. Peace is not found in the future, it is chosen in this moment. One of the greatest illusions the human mind creates is the belief that peace is waiting somewhere ahead in time. You tell yourself that once this problem is solved, you will finally relax. Once this goal is achieved, you will finally feel secure. Once this uncertainty disappears, you will finally feel calm. So you postpone your peace. You delay your rest. You convince yourself that tension is temporary and necessary until life becomes stable. But look closely at your life. Has there ever been a time when everything was completely certain? Even when one problem disappears, another eventually appears. Even when one goal is achieved, another desire takes its place. The future has always carried new variables. If peace depends on perfect conditions, then peace will always remain out of reach. The Buddha understood that suffering is not only caused by pain, but by craving and postponement. Craving says, "I will be okay when," postponement says, "I can relax later," but later never truly arrives. Life unfolds only in this present moment. The only place you can ever experience peace is here. Worry convinces you that you must solve tomorrow before you are allowed to feel calm today. It tells you that peace is irresponsible in the face of uncertainty. It whispers that relaxation is weakness. But that voice is driven by fear, not wisdom. You do not need to eliminate every possible risk before allowing yourself to breathe. Peace is not the result of controlling life. It is the result of accepting life as it is unfolding right now. This moment, as you read these words, contains no future event. The imagined failures, the possible rejections, the uncertain outcomes, they are not here. They exist only as thoughts. Yet those thoughts have the power to disturb you because you treat them as immediate reality. You react to imagination as if it is happening in front of you. When you return your attention to this moment, you discover something grounding. You are breathing. You are present. Nothing catastrophic is happening in this exact second. Even if challenges are part of your life, they are experienced step by step, not all at once. Worry tries to compress the entire future into a single mental burden. Presence unpacks it into manageable moments. Peace is a choice of perception. It is the decision to focus on what is real rather than what is imagined. It is the willingness to release mental projections and return to sensory experience. When you feel your breath, notice your surroundings, and ground yourself in what is tangible, anxiety loses intensity. It cannot survive in sustained awareness. Many people believe that choosing peace means ignoring responsibility, but peace does not eliminate action. It refines it. When you act from calm awareness rather than fear, your decisions improve. Your communication becomes clearer. Your creativity expands. You stop reacting impulsively and start responding thoughtfully. Think about times when you made decisions under intense worry. Did those decisions feel wise, or did they feel rushed, defensive, or driven by fear? Now think about moments when you felt calm and clear. Your judgment was sharper. Your patience was stronger. Your confidence was steadier. Peace strengthens effectiveness. When you postpone peace, you weaken yourself. You drain energy in advance. You carry emotional weight that does not belong to this moment. That weight clouds your perception and limits your ability to see solutions. The mind often argues that peace will make you complacent, but true peace is not laziness, it is inner stability. Stability allows endurance, it allows focus over long periods. It allows consistent effort without burnout. Anxiety might create short bursts of urgency, but it cannot sustain healthy growth. Choosing peace now does not mean pretending the future does not matter. It means understanding that the future is shaped by how you show up today. If you show up anxious and scattered, tomorrow reflects that. If you show up calm and clear, tomorrow reflects that instead. There is also a deeper freedom in recognizing that peace does not require external approval. Many worries revolve around how others will perceive you. Will they judge you? Will they reject you? Will they misunderstand you? These fears pull your peace into other people's hands, but you cannot fully control their thoughts. Anchoring your calm in their reactions creates constant instability. When you choose peace internally, independent of external reactions, you regain autonomy. You stop outsourcing your emotional state to unpredictable circumstances. You become grounded in your own awareness. Impermanence, which once felt threatening, becomes reassuring. The difficult conversation will pass. The stressful period will shift. Even the current challenge will transform over time. Nothing remains fixed. Recognizing this reduces urgency. It reminds you that you do not need to solve your entire life at once. The present moment is always manageable. The imagined future rarely is. Peace also changes how you experience time. When you are worrying, time feels heavy and rushed at the same time. You feel behind, pressured, constantly anticipating. When you are present, time feels spacious. Even brief moments carry depth. You experience life more fully rather than racing through it mentally. There is strength in slowing down your internal pace. There is courage in choosing calm when your mind demands panic. That courage grows each time you practice it. At first, returning to presence may feel unnatural because you are used to constant mental movement, but with repetition, presence becomes more familiar than worry. Peace is not found by solving every uncertainty. It is cultivated by accepting that uncertainty is part of existence. The need for total certainty is endless. There will always be something unknown. But your ability to remain steady within that unknown can grow infinitely. You are not required to carry tomorrow's weight today. You are not required to mentally rehearse every possible outcome before it happens. You are not required to sacrifice this moment for hypothetical futures. You can choose to breathe fully now. You can choose to act clearly now. You can choose to trust your resilience now. The future will unfold regardless of how much you worry, but your experience of it will depend on how you show up in the present. When you cultivate peace today, you build strength for tomorrow. When you ground yourself in awareness now, you reduce unnecessary suffering later. Peace is not a reward waiting at the end of a problem-free life. It is a skill practiced in the middle of uncertainty. It is an orientation toward reality that reduces internal conflict. And when you finally stop chasing peace in the future and begin embodying it now, something shifts profoundly. Life feels less like a threat and more like a journey. Challenges feel less like punishments and more like experiences. You stop living as if calm is conditional and start living as if calm is available. The mind may still produce thoughts about tomorrow. That is natural. But you no longer let those thoughts steal this moment. You acknowledge them without surrendering your balance. In that steady awareness, worry weakens. In that grounded presence, clarity strengthens. And in that clarity, you realize something simple yet transformative. Peace was never hidden in the future. It was always accessible in this moment, waiting for you to choose it. 10. You were never meant to carry the whole future, you were meant to walk it. There is a quiet pressure that most people live with every day, and they rarely question it. It is the pressure to figure everything out at once, the pressure to secure the future before it arrives. The pressure to predict every outcome, prepare for every mistake, and prevent every possible disappointment. You wake up, and before your feet even touch the ground, your mind is already in tomorrow. It is already negotiating conversations that have not happened. It is already replaying problems that may never appear. It is already trying to solve a life that has not unfolded yet. And this pressure feels normal because you have carried it for so long. But you were never meant to carry the entire future in your thoughts. You were meant to walk it, step by step. Worry convinces you that thinking further ahead equals being safer. It tells you that if you can mentally master the future, you will avoid pain. But the future is not something that can be mentally conquered. It is something that unfolds moment by moment, and no amount of pre-thinking can replace the wisdom that arises when you meet reality directly. The Buddha taught that suffering arises when the mind clings to what is not present. When you cling to a future that has not arrived, you disconnect from the only place where life is actually happening. The future never comes as a giant, overwhelming block. It always arrives as a single moment, a conversation, a decision, a step, a breath. Yet the mind tries to compress years into one mental burden. Think about how heavy your life feels when you try to carry it all at once. You think about your career, your relationships, your finances, your reputation, your health, your long-term goals, your potential failures, your possible regrets. It becomes too much. You feel overwhelmed, not because life is impossible, but because you are trying to mentally hold everything simultaneously. Now imagine removing that weight. Imagine understanding that you do not need to solve your entire life today. You only need to respond to this moment clearly. The rest will unfold when it unfolds. This is not avoidance. This is intelligence. When you try to mentally carry the whole path before walking it, you exhaust yourself before the journey even begins. It is like trying to eat a year's worth of meals in one sitting. It makes no sense, yet this is exactly what the mind attempts with time. Walking the future means focusing on what is directly in front of you. It means doing the task that is here, having the conversation that is here, making the decision that is here. When that is complete, the next moment appears. This is how life has always worked. You have already walked through countless unknown futures without realizing it. Every year behind you was once uncertain. Every month once felt unclear. Every day once held questions. Yet you walked through them. Not by solving everything at once, but by responding as moments arrived. The mind forgets this. It acts as if tomorrow will be different from all the tomorrows that came before. It treats uncertainty as a sign of danger rather than as the natural condition of existence. When you stop trying to carry the entire future, your nervous system relaxes, your breathing slows, your thoughts become less frantic. You begin to see that most of your anxiety was created by mental compression, by forcing too much time into one psychological frame. Walking the future also means trusting your ability to learn along the way. You do not need to have all the answers now. You will gather information as situations unfold. You will develop skills as challenges arise. You will gain insight as experiences shape you. Growth is not pre-installed. It is cultivated in motion. The need to know everything in advance is rooted in fear. It is the fear of being unprepared. But preparation does not require obsession. It requires attention, and attention is strongest in the present moment. When you focus on walking rather than carrying, something changes in your posture toward life. You stop living in anticipation and start living in participation. You become less consumed by hypothetical outcomes and more engaged in real experiences. This shift transforms your relationship with time. Instead of feeling chased by the future, you feel aligned with it. Instead of racing mentally ahead, you move steadily. Instead of panicking about what could happen, you prepare calmly for what is happening. You also discover that most of what you feared was exaggerated. When events finally arrive, they are rarely as catastrophic as the mind predicted. Even when difficulties are real, they are manageable when faced directly. They feel overwhelming only when imagined in bulk. There is a profound humility in accepting that you cannot predict every turn. This humility softens the ego's demand for control. It reminds you that life is complex, interconnected, and constantly shifting. You are part of this flow, not separate from it. Walking the future means surrendering the illusion that you must dominate it. It means understanding that your role is not to control every outcome, but to act with clarity and integrity in each step. When you live this way, you conserve immense mental energy. That energy becomes focus. It becomes creativity. It becomes resilience. You begin to trust the rhythm of life rather than fighting it. There will still be challenges. There will still be unknowns. But you will not face them as someone already exhausted by imaginary battles. You will face them as someone grounded, steady, and present. And this steadiness makes all the difference. You were never meant to carry decades in your head at once. You were never meant to solve your entire destiny before it unfolds. You were meant to walk, observe, learn, adapt, and continue. When you finally accept this, worry loses much of its grip. Because worry thrives on the belief that you must manage everything in advance. Once you release that belief, space opens. In that space, peace emerges. In that peace, clarity strengthens. And in that clarity, you realize something freeing. The future is not a weight to carry. It is a path to walk. And you have been walking it successfully all along. 11. You are not responsible for controlling everything, only for responding wisely. One of the deepest sources of worry in your life is the belief that you are responsible for far more than you truly are. You feel responsible for how others feel. You feel responsible for how situations unfold. You feel responsible for preventing every mistake, avoiding every disappointment, and ensuring that everything goes smoothly. This silent sense of responsibility sits on your shoulders like invisible weight. And because you rarely question it, you assume it is normal. But it is not normal, it is conditioning. From a young age, you were taught to anticipate consequences. You were taught to be careful. You were taught to think ahead. These lessons are not wrong. Awareness is valuable. Preparation is useful. But somewhere along the way, awareness turned into anxiety. Preparation turned into obsession. And thinking ahead turned into trying to control everything. You began to believe that if something goes wrong, it must be because you failed to think hard enough. If someone is upset, it must be because you did something incorrectly. If a plan changes, it must mean you did not prepare well enough. This mindset quietly convinces you that you must manage reality itself. But reality is not yours to manage. The Buddha taught a powerful truth about suffering. Attachment to control creates distress because it is based on misunderstanding. You are not the master of the universe. You are a participant in it. Countless factors shape outcomes, other people's decisions, circumstances beyond your knowledge, timing, chance, natural change. To believe that you must control all of this is to give yourself an impossible task. And impossible tasks create anxiety. You are not responsible for controlling everything. You are responsible for responding wisely to what arises. This distinction changes everything. When you believe you must control outcomes, you live in constant tension. You monitor every detail. You analyze every possibility. You overthink every conversation. Your mind becomes a control center trying to prevent chaos. But chaos still appears because unpredictability is part of life. And when it does, you feel like you have failed. When you shift from control to response, your energy changes. Instead of trying to force life into your preferred shape, you focus on meeting life as it unfolds. You do not waste energy fighting what already exists. You use energy to choose your reaction. This is where real power lies. Imagine a sudden challenge appears in your life. If you were trying to control everything beforehand, you may feel shocked, betrayed, or unprepared. But if you understand that unpredictability is natural, you are less surprised. You ask yourself, how can I respond wisely to this, rather than, how could this happen? That question alone transforms your experience. Responding wisely requires presence. It requires attention. It requires emotional regulation. These qualities are strengthened when you are not drowning in preemptive worry. When you are calm, you can assess situations clearly. When you are grounded, you can make balanced decisions. When you are not panicking, you can act effectively. Control is rooted in fear of uncertainty. Response is rooted in acceptance of reality. There is humility in accepting that you cannot dictate every outcome. That humility is not weakness, it is clarity. It frees you from unrealistic expectations. It allows you to acknowledge your limits without shame. You cannot control how others interpret your words. You cannot control how fast success arrives. You cannot control every obstacle that appears, but you can control your effort. You can control your integrity. You can control your willingness to adapt. When you accept this, worry begins to dissolve because you are no longer trying to do the impossible. Think about how much mental space you occupy with questions like, what if this goes wrong? Or, how can I prevent every negative possibility? These questions assume total responsibility. They assume that your thoughts alone determine outcomes. But life has always been more complex than that. When you focus on responding instead of controlling, you gain resilience. Resilience is not the absence of difficulty, it is the ability to remain steady in difficulty. It is built through experience, not through mental rehearsal of disaster. You have already demonstrated resilience countless times. Every time something unexpected occurred and you adapted, you were responding wisely. You did not need to predict the exact scenario beforehand. You met it as it came. This is how life works. Control says, I must prevent the storm. Response says, if the storm comes, I will adjust my sails. Which mindset creates more peace? The belief that you must prevent every storm creates endless anxiety because storms are inevitable. But the belief that you can adjust your sails builds confidence because it acknowledges reality. You are not fragile, you are adaptable. The more you recognize this, the less urgent control feels. There is also freedom in releasing responsibility for other people's emotions. You can act with kindness, you can communicate with honesty, but you cannot control how someone else feels or reacts. When you try to manage their inner world, you exhaust yourself. When you accept that they have their own journey, you release unnecessary burden. Responding wisely does not mean passivity. It means conscious action. It means making choices aligned with your values rather than with fear. It means evaluating what is within your influence and letting go of what is not. This shift from control to response is a spiritual maturation. It reflects understanding of impermanence and interconnectedness. It acknowledges that life unfolds through countless interactions beyond individual control. As you practice this mindset, your internal dialogue changes. Instead of saying, I must fix everything, you begin saying, I will do my best with what is here. Instead of thinking, this should not be happening, you think, this is happening, how do I meet it wisely? These subtle shifts create enormous psychological relief. You stop carrying unnecessary responsibility. You stop punishing yourself for outcomes beyond your influence. You stop believing that anxiety is proof of competence. Competence comes from clarity, not panic. The more you embody this understanding, the lighter you feel. You move through challenges with steadiness. You accept delays without collapse. You handle mistakes without self-destruction. You trust your ability to adjust rather than your ability to predict. This trust does not make life perfect. It makes you stronger. And strength built on clarity is stable. It does not require constant mental tension to survive. You are not here to control the entire unfolding of existence. You are here to participate in it consciously, to learn, to adapt, to grow, to respond. When you finally release the illusion that you must control everything, you discover a quiet confidence that has always been within you. You realize that your role is not to carry the universe. It is to meet each moment with awareness. And that awareness is more powerful than worry ever was. 12. The life you fear is often the life that frees you. There is a hidden pattern in the way you worry, and if you look closely, you will begin to see it. Most of your anxiety is not about random events. It is about change. It is about losing something familiar. It is about stepping into the unknown. It is about the possibility that life may not look the way you imagined. The mind fears what it cannot predict, and because it cannot predict the future perfectly, it labels uncertainty as danger. But here is a truth that takes courage to accept. The life you are afraid of is often the life that will expand you. Think about the moments in your past that changed you the most. They were rarely comfortable. They were rarely planned exactly the way you wanted. Sometimes they arrived through loss, rejection, failure, or unexpected endings. At the time, you worried intensely. You imagined disaster. You feared collapse. But those very experiences shaped your strength. They revealed parts of you that comfort never could. The Buddha taught that attachment to comfort and resistance to change are deep sources of suffering. You cling to what feels safe, because it is familiar, even if it limits you. You resist what feels uncertain, because it threatens your identity. But growth rarely happens in perfectly controlled environments. It happens when the old version of you can no longer survive in the same patterns. Worry is often the mind's attempt to protect the old version of you. It tries to keep everything predictable so that your identity remains intact. It tries to avoid discomfort so that you never have to evolve. But life is movement. Life is constant transformation. The person you were 5 years ago is not the person you are today, and the person you are today will not remain the same in 5 years. Change is not optional, it is inevitable. The more you fight this truth, the more anxious you become. When uncertainty appears, instead of asking, "How can I stop this?" you can ask, "What is this teaching me?" That shift alone turns fear into curiosity. Curiosity softens resistance. Resistance creates tension. Curiosity creates openness. Consider the possibilities you have avoided because of worry. Opportunities you did not pursue because you feared failure. Conversations you avoided because you feared rejection. Decisions you delayed because you feared making the wrong choice. Each of those avoided moments preserved comfort, but also limited growth. The life you fear often contains expansion. The path that feels uncertain may hold skills you have not yet developed. The challenge you are trying to prevent may build resilience you cannot gain in ease. This does not mean you should seek suffering. It means you should stop assuming that discomfort equals destruction. Worry exaggerates discomfort into catastrophe. It tells you that if things change, you will not survive. But your history proves otherwise. You have survived every major shift so far. You adapted to environments you once thought impossible. You learned from mistakes you once regretted deeply. The mind wants guarantees before moving forward. It wants certainty before acting. But certainty is rarely available in advance. It appears in hindsight. You understand why something happened only after it unfolds. Trusting life means accepting that clarity often comes after movement, not before. There is also a subtle freedom in recognizing that even if things do not go according to your plan, they may still serve you. Many times, what feels like loss in the present becomes redirection in the future. What feels like rejection becomes protection. What feels like delay becomes preparation. Worry narrows your vision to immediate fear. Trust widens your perspective to long-term growth. When you stop trying to eliminate every risk, you begin to live more fully. You speak more honestly. You act more boldly. You explore more openly. You accept that mistakes are part of learning. You understand that imperfection is part of experience. Life becomes less about avoiding pain and more about embracing reality. This shift does not remove fear entirely. Fear is natural, but fear no longer dominates your decisions. It becomes information rather than authority. You acknowledge it without surrendering to it. There is strength in stepping toward uncertainty with awareness instead of panic. There is maturity in saying, "I do not know exactly how this will unfold, but I am willing to find out." When you live this way, worry loses its central role. It no longer defines your actions. It no longer dictates your mood. It becomes background noise rather than the main voice. The life you fear might challenge your comfort, but it may also awaken your courage. It might disrupt your expectations, but it may reveal your capacity. It might break certain attachments, but it may strengthen your independence. You cannot grow while trying to remain unchanged. The Buddha's path was not about avoiding discomfort. It was about seeing through illusion. One of the greatest illusions is that safety lies in rigid control. True safety lies in adaptability. It lies in inner stability. It lies in knowing that whatever comes, you can meet it with awareness. When you stop fearing change so intensely, you open yourself to possibility. You allow life to surprise you. You allow experiences to shape you. You allow yourself to evolve. Worry tries to protect you from transformation, but transformation is not your enemy. Often, the very future you fear holds the lessons you need. Often, the uncertainty you resist contains the growth you seek. Often, the life you are anxious about is the life that will expand your understanding of yourself. You do not need to control every outcome to be safe. You need to cultivate resilience. You need to strengthen presence. You need to trust that even when you step into unfamiliar territory, you carry your awareness with you. When you deeply accept that growth requires movement, worry begins to feel less convincing. You see it for what it is, a protective mechanism that sometimes overreacts. You thank it for its intention, but you do not allow it to run your life. And when you live this way, something shifts quietly within you. You stop asking, "How can I prevent change?" and start asking, "How can I grow through it?" In that shift, fear softens. In that openness, life expands. And in that expansion, you realize that the future you feared was never your destruction. It was your evolution. 13. The mind wants certainty, but the soul grows in uncertainty. There is a deep conflict inside you that creates much of your worry, and most of the time you do not even notice it. On one side, your mind wants certainty. It wants guarantees. It wants clear answers, predictable outcomes, and reassurance that nothing will go wrong. On the other side, there is something deeper within you, call it your awareness, your soul, your higher self, that grows only through uncertainty. This inner part of you expands when you step into the unknown. It strengthens when you face challenges. It matures when life does not go according to plan. The mind and the soul want different things. The mind wants safety. The soul wants growth. The mind says, "Do not take that risk." The soul whispers, "You are capable of more." The mind says, "What if you fail?" The soul responds, "What if you learn?" Most of your worry comes from listening only to the mind's demand for certainty. You try to eliminate all unknowns before acting. You try to calculate every possible outcome before deciding. You try to mentally secure a future that cannot be secured in advance. And when you cannot find that certainty, anxiety appears. But here is something important to understand. Certainty is an illusion. Even when things seem stable, they are changing beneath the surface. Even when you believe you have control, countless variables are in motion beyond your awareness. The desire for complete certainty is not realistic. It is a mental craving for something that does not exist in permanent form. The Buddha taught that impermanence is a fundamental truth of existence. Everything is in flux. Relationships shift. Opportunities change. Emotions rise and fall. Even your own thoughts transform from moment to moment. To demand permanent certainty in an impermanent world is to guarantee frustration. And yet, the mind insists. It insists because it equates uncertainty with danger. In ancient times, uncertainty could mean threat. But today, most of your uncertainty is not life-threatening. It is psychological. It is about reputation, success, acceptance, or outcomes. The mind reacts to these as if they are survival issues, even when they are not. When you understand this, you begin to see worry differently. You see that it is not proof that something terrible is coming. It is the mind's reaction to the absence of guarantees. But growth never happens in guaranteed environments. Think about the times in your life when you developed the most strength. It was when you did not know exactly how things would unfold. It was when you were unsure but moved forward anyway. It was when you had to rely on adaptability rather than prediction. Those moments stretched you. They forced you to become more capable. If you had waited for complete certainty before acting in those moments, you would have remained stuck. The soul grows in uncertainty because uncertainty demands presence. When you do not know what will happen, you must stay alert. You must observe carefully. You must respond intelligently. This strengthens awareness. It builds resilience. It expands confidence rooted in experience rather than fantasy. Certainty can create stagnation. Uncertainty creates movement. The problem is not uncertainty itself. The problem is your resistance to it. Worry is resistance to uncertainty. It is the mind's attempt to eliminate what cannot be eliminated. When you fight uncertainty, you create tension. When you accept uncertainty, you create space. In that space, wisdom develops. Imagine approaching life with the understanding that uncertainty is not a flaw in the system, but a feature of growth. Instead of asking, "How can I remove all doubt?" you begin asking, "How can I strengthen myself within doubt?" This shift transforms anxiety into opportunity. You stop trying to control every possible outcome and start focusing on becoming more adaptable. You stop demanding that life provide answers in advance and begin trusting that answers will emerge as you move. This trust is not blind. It is grounded in your lived experience. You have navigated uncertainty before. You have entered situations without knowing how they would unfold. You have survived and learned. That evidence matters. The more you reflect on this, the more you realize that certainty was never the reason you succeeded. Adaptability was. Certainty did not build your character. Challenge did. Predictability did not sharpen your awareness. Change did. So why do you continue to treat uncertainty as an enemy? Because the mind prefers comfort over growth. But comfort alone does not create fulfillment. Growth does. When you stop expecting life to feel completely safe at all times, you stop being shocked by unpredictability. You become less reactive when plans change. You become less devastated when expectations are not met. You understand that uncertainty is not a sign of failure. It is a sign of life in motion. There is also freedom in admitting that you do not know everything. The ego wants to appear in control. It wants to believe it has the answers. But humility allows learning. When you accept that you cannot predict every turn, you remain open to insight. You remain flexible. This flexibility reduces worry because you are no longer clinging to rigid expectations. You move with life instead of against it. The soul thrives in this movement. It expands through new experiences. It deepens through reflection. It strengthens through resilience. When you live only for certainty, you limit your potential. You avoid risks that might transform you. You stay in environments that feel familiar but no longer challenge you. You choose security over possibility. But when you accept uncertainty as part of your path, you begin to live more fully. You take thoughtful risks. You speak more honestly. You pursue meaningful goals, even when outcomes are unclear. Worry may still arise. The mind will still ask for guarantees. But you will not obey it blindly. You will recognize its desire for safety and respond with awareness rather than fear. You will remind yourself that uncertainty is not a threat. It is a teacher. You will remember that you have grown through every uncertain season before. You will see that life's unpredictability is not punishment, but opportunity. And slowly, something changes inside you. Instead of waiting for certainty to feel calm, you begin to cultivate calm within uncertainty. Instead of demanding answers before acting, you act and allow answers to reveal themselves. Instead of fearing the unknown, you become curious about it. In this transformation, worry loses its authority. It becomes a passing mental signal rather than a defining force. You no longer allow the absence of guarantees to steal your peace. You understand something deeper now. The mind may crave certainty, but the soul evolves through the unknown. And when you align with that evolution, life stops feeling like something you must control. It becomes something you are willing to experience, with openness, with courage, and with trust. 14. The peace you are searching for is already within you. There is something deeply ironic about the way you have been living. You have been searching for peace, as if it is something outside of you. You have been trying to arrange your life in a way that will finally allow you to relax. You tell yourself that once the money is stable, once the relationship feels secure, once the future looks clearer, then you will allow yourself to feel calm. So you chase stability, you chase reassurance, you chase guarantees, and in that chasing, you move further away from the very peace you desire. The Buddha revealed a truth that is simple yet difficult to accept. The peace you seek is not created by external conditions. It is uncovered when you stop fighting your inner experience. You have believed that peace depends on life behaving the way you want. But life has never fully obeyed your preferences. It shifts, it surprises, it changes direction. And because of that, your peace has felt unstable. You tied your inner calm to outer certainty, but outer certainty has never been permanent. Peace is not something you achieve by eliminating uncertainty. It is something you access by releasing resistance. Right now, in this moment, there is a quiet space within you that exists beneath all the thoughts. Beneath the worries, beneath the projections about the future, beneath the tension. It has always been there. You just rarely notice it because your attention is constantly pulled outward or forward in time. Your mind is busy trying to manage what might happen next. It is replaying past conversations. It is imagining future scenarios. It is calculating risks. And in that mental noise, you forget to observe the stillness that exists beneath it. Peace is not the absence of problems, it is the presence of awareness. When you sit quietly and observe your thoughts instead of chasing them, you begin to see that they rise and fall on their own. Worry appears, it stays for a while, it shifts, it fades. Another thought replaces it, but the awareness observing these thoughts remains steady. That awareness is your anchor. The problem is not that thoughts exist. The problem is that you identify with them completely. When the mind says something terrible might happen, you believe it instantly. You step inside the imagined future and emotionally react as if it is real. You forget that you are the observer of that thought, not the thought itself. The moment you create even a small space between you and your thinking, peace begins to re-emerge. Instead of saying, "I am anxious," you begin noticing anxiety is present. That shift changes everything. You move from being consumed by worry to witnessing it. The witness is calm. The witness does not panic. The witness simply observes. This calm awareness has always been within you. Even in your most stressful moments, there was a part of you that could observe what was happening. That part was not destroyed by fear. It was not overwhelmed by uncertainty. It remained steady. You do not need to create peace. You need to uncover it. The reason it feels hidden is because you are constantly looking for it in the wrong place. You look for it in future outcomes. You look for it in other people's approval. You look for it in financial security. But those things can support comfort, not peace. Peace comes from accepting the present moment without fighting it. When you resist what is happening, tension arises. When you argue mentally with reality, stress grows. When you demand that things be different before you allow yourself to relax, you create endless delay. Acceptance does not mean approval. It means acknowledgement. It means recognizing what is here without adding mental drama. For example, if uncertainty is present, you acknowledge uncertainty. You do not layer it with catastrophic imagination. If discomfort is present, you acknowledge discomfort. You do not immediately project it into permanent suffering. This practice of acceptance gradually weakens worry. Worry depends on resistance. It depends on the belief that what is happening should not be happening. When you soften that belief, your inner state shifts. There is also something deeply empowering about realizing that peace is not fragile. It does not require perfect circumstances. It can exist in the middle of imperfection. It can exist while challenges are unresolved. It can exist while answers are unclear. Think about a storm over the ocean. The surface waves may be rough and chaotic, but deep beneath the surface, the water remains calm. Your thoughts are like the waves. Your awareness is like the deep ocean. When you identify only with the surface, life feels turbulent. When you connect with the depth, stability returns. You have been living on the surface of your mind. That is why everything feels urgent and overwhelming. When you begin to rest in awareness, urgency softens. The future loses some of its intensity. You see that many of your worries are repetitive patterns, not fresh emergencies. Peace also grows when you stop judging yourself for worrying. Fighting worry with frustration only strengthens it. Instead of saying, "I should not feel this way," you gently acknowledge, "This is what is happening right now." That gentleness creates space, and in that space, clarity emerges. You realize that the mind's constant search for control has been exhausting you. You realize that you do not need to solve every possible outcome before allowing yourself to breathe. You realize that the present moment, as imperfect as it may seem, is still livable. The more you return to this awareness, the more stable you become. Life will continue to change, challenges will arise, plans will shift, but your inner foundation strengthens. You stop chasing peace in the distance. You begin living from peace in the present. This does not make you passive, it makes you powerful. When you act from peace rather than panic, your decisions improve. Your communication becomes clearer, your actions become more intentional. You stop reacting from fear and start responding from clarity. The peace within you is not something mystical or unreachable. It is your natural state beneath mental noise. It is what remains when you are not lost in projections. It is available right now, not after the problem is solved, not after the uncertainty disappears, not after the future becomes predictable. Right now, when you finally understand this deeply, something profound shifts. You stop running. You stop chasing reassurance. You stop demanding guarantees. You return to yourself. And in that return, you discover that the peace you were searching for was never missing. It was simply waiting for you to stop searching outside and look within. 15. The moment you stop fighting life, you begin to live it. There is a subtle battle happening inside you almost every day. It is not always loud. It does not always look dramatic. But it is constant. It is the battle between how life is and how you think life should be. You wake up with expectations. You expect certain reactions from people. You expect progress in your plans. You expect things to move in a predictable direction. And when reality does not match those expectations, resistance begins. That resistance turns into frustration. That frustration turns into worry. And that worry slowly drains your peace. Most of your suffering does not come from events themselves. It comes from fighting those events. The Buddha taught that suffering arises not merely because of pain, but because of attachment and resistance. When something unpleasant happens, there is the initial experience. But then the mind adds layers. This should not be happening. Why is this happening to me? What if this gets worse? Those layers create secondary suffering. The first pain might be unavoidable. The second is created by internal struggle. You have been fighting life in small ways for years without realizing it. You fight delays because they interrupt your plans. You fight rejection because it challenges your identity. You fight uncertainty because it threatens your sense of control. You fight imperfection because it disrupts your image of how things should be. But life does not respond to resistance. It moves according to its own rhythm. Imagine standing in a river, trying to push the water backward. No matter how hard you push, the current continues forward. The more you resist, the more exhausted you become. Now imagine turning your body and flowing with the current instead. The river still moves, but now you are not fighting it. You are navigating it. This is what it means to stop fighting life. Stopping the fight does not mean giving up on goals. It does not mean accepting injustice. It does not mean becoming passive. It means releasing the mental war against reality. It means acknowledging what is happening and choosing your response wisely instead of reacting emotionally. Worry is often a symptom of this inner fight. You worry because you are trying to prevent life from unfolding in certain ways. You worry because you want guarantees that nothing uncomfortable will occur. You worry because you believe that if you mentally resist hard enough, you can stop change. But change is inevitable. When you stop fighting change, you stop exhausting yourself. There is a deep misunderstanding in the way most people approach control. They believe that if they remain tense and vigilant at all times, they will prevent problems. But tension does not equal control, it equals stress. Control is limited. Awareness is powerful. When something unexpected happens, you have two choices. You can mentally resist it and create internal conflict, or you can accept that it is happening and decide how to respond. The first option drains energy. The second builds strength. Acceptance is often confused with weakness, but acceptance is clarity. It is seeing reality as it is without distortion. It is saying, this is what is here right now, without adding unnecessary fear. Once you accept what is, you can move intelligently. When you fight life, you live in constant opposition. Everything feels like an obstacle. Every challenge feels personal. Every setback feels like failure. But when you stop fighting, you begin to see events as part of a larger unfolding. You begin to see challenges as experiences rather than attacks. This shift reduces worry dramatically, because worry feeds on resistance. The more you resist uncertainty, the more anxious you become. The more you resist imperfection, the more frustrated you feel. The more you resist unpredictability, the more tense you remain. Letting go of resistance does not mean you stop caring. It means you stop arguing with reality. There is something liberating about acknowledging that you cannot control everything. It removes unrealistic pressure. It allows you to focus on what truly matters: your effort, your values, your awareness. When you stop fighting life, you conserve mental energy. That energy becomes presence. Presence allows you to experience moments more fully. You notice details you once overlooked. You listen more carefully. You respond more thoughtfully. Life begins to feel less like a battlefield and more like a journey. Even difficult experiences change in meaning. Instead of seeing them as interruptions, you begin to see them as chapters. You realize that growth often hides inside discomfort. You recognize that challenges refine you. Fighting life narrows your perspective. Flowing with life widens it. When you are constantly resisting, you are locked in a small frame of thought. You see only what is wrong. You focus only on what is missing. But when you relax your grip, your vision expands. You notice possibilities. You see alternative paths. You recognize that not every unexpected turn is negative. Many times, the path you resisted turned out to be beneficial in ways you did not anticipate, but you could not see that while you were fighting it. Stopping the fight also softens your inner dialogue. Instead of saying, "This should not be happening," you begin saying, "This is happening. How do I move through it?" That shift empowers you. You are no longer a victim of circumstance. You are an active participant in experience. There is also peace in recognizing that life has always been moving without your constant interference. The sun rises whether you worry or not. Seasons change whether you plan them or not. Events unfold whether you resist them or not. Your constant tension has never been the force keeping the world in order. Realizing this brings humility, and humility brings relief. You do not have to micromanage existence. You do not have to carry the weight of the entire future. You do not have to fight every wave that approaches. You can stand, observe, and choose your movement wisely. When you stop fighting life, you stop living in defense mode. You begin to live in awareness mode. You stop bracing for impact and start walking with intention. The irony is that when you stop resisting, life often feels smoother. Not because it becomes perfect, but because you are no longer creating additional struggle. You were never meant to win a war against reality. You were meant to understand it. You were meant to participate in it consciously. You were meant to grow through it, not conquer it. And when you finally stop fighting what is, something extraordinary happens. You begin to live, not in anticipation of the future, not in fear of uncertainty, but fully, steadily, and peacefully in this moment. And in that living, worry loses its foundation, because there is nothing left to fight. There is only life unfolding, and you walking it with awareness. 16. The freedom you want is on the other side of letting go. If you are honest with yourself, what you truly want is freedom. Not just financial freedom or freedom of schedule, but inner freedom. The freedom to wake up without a tight chest. The freedom to make decisions without overanalyzing every possible outcome. The freedom to speak without rehearsing every sentence in your mind. The freedom to live without constantly preparing for disaster. You want lightness. You want to feel unburdened. You want to feel at ease inside your own mind. But here is the difficult truth, that freedom is not blocked by your circumstances. It is blocked by what you are holding on to. You are holding on to imagined futures. You are holding on to the need for certainty. You are holding on to outcomes that have not even arrived. You are holding on to identities that are afraid of change. And every time you hold tightly, you create tension. That tension becomes worry. That worry becomes mental noise. That noise becomes exhaustion. The freedom you want is on the other side of letting go. Letting go does not mean abandoning your responsibilities. It does not mean becoming careless. It does not mean giving up on goals. It means releasing your emotional dependence on outcomes you cannot fully control. Right now, much of your anxiety comes from trying to secure something that cannot be permanently secured. You want guarantees about relationships. You want guarantees about success. You want guarantees about health. You want guarantees about how people see you. But life does not offer permanent guarantees. It offers movement. It offers change. When you demand certainty from a world built on impermanence, you create inner conflict. The Buddha taught that clinging leads to suffering because everything changes. When you cling to something that is shifting, you feel instability. You try to tighten your grip. But the tighter you hold, the more anxious you become. Freedom begins when you recognize that clinging is optional. Imagine holding a heavy stone in your hand for hours. At first, you barely notice the weight. But as time passes, your arm grows tired. The pain increases. Now imagine someone telling you that you are free to drop it. The weight disappears instantly. The relief is immediate. The freedom was always available, but only if you were willing to release the stone. Worry is that stone. The belief that you must mentally control the future is that stone. The assumption that everything must go according to your plan is that stone, and you have been holding it for years. Letting go feels uncomfortable at first because the mind associates control with safety. It says, if I stop worrying, I will miss something. It says, if I stop preparing mentally, I will be unprotected. But ask yourself honestly, has constant worry truly protected you? Or has it only drained your energy before life even unfolded? When you let go, you do not lose awareness, you gain clarity. You shift from obsessive anticipation to grounded presence. You move from tension to alertness. There is a difference. Tension is tight and fearful. Alertness is calm and attentive. Freedom is not about eliminating uncertainty. It is about being steady within it. Right now, your mind may be racing ahead to scenarios that have not happened. It may be constructing possibilities that feel urgent, but none of those futures are here. They are projections. They are mental simulations. You are reacting to imagination as if it is reality. Letting go means stepping out of those simulations. It means returning to what is tangible, your breath, your surroundings, the moment in front of you. In that return, freedom begins. You start to realize that much of what you fear exists only in thought. You begin to see how repetitive those thoughts are. The same patterns, the same worries, the same what-if loops. And you notice something important. Even when you worried intensely in the past, life still unfolded on its own terms. Your anxiety was not the force guiding existence. The world did not depend on your mental tension to function. The sun rose whether you worried or not. People made decisions whether you rehearsed them or not. Opportunities appeared whether you panicked or not. This realization humbles the ego's need for control. It shows you that you were never meant to micromanage the universe. You were meant to experience it. Freedom grows when you accept that your role is to act wisely in the present, not to dominate the future. When you stop gripping every possible outcome, you begin to feel lighter. Your thoughts slow down. Your reactions soften. You notice beauty in small moments that anxiety once overshadowed. You begin to experience life instead of constantly bracing against it. There is also courage in letting go. It requires trusting your own resilience. It requires believing that even if things do not go perfectly, you will adapt, and you always have. Look at your past. Every time something went wrong, you adjusted. Every time something unexpected happened, you found a way forward. You did not need to control everything in advance. You needed presence in the moment. Freedom is trusting that this pattern will continue. It is trusting that you can handle uncertainty without collapsing. It is trusting that growth often hides inside discomfort. When you live with this trust, your decisions become clearer. You are no longer paralyzed by the need for guarantees. You move with intention rather than fear. Letting go also transforms your relationships. You stop trying to control how others behave. You stop overanalyzing every interaction. You allow people to be who they are without tying your emotional stability to their actions. That shift alone brings immense relief. You cannot control others' thoughts. You cannot control every outcome. You cannot control time. But you can control how you meet the present. That is where your true power lies. The freedom you desire is not a future achievement. It is a present release. It is the moment you say, I do not need to carry what is not here yet. It is the moment you choose to breathe instead of brace. It is the moment you accept that uncertainty is part of existence. In that acceptance, the grip loosens. In that loosening, space appears. In that space, peace returns. You were never meant to live in constant defense against tomorrow. You were meant to walk through life with awareness, adaptability, and trust. And the moment you finally drop the weight of imagined futures, you realize something extraordinary. Freedom was never far away. It was waiting for you to let go. 17. The version of you without worry is already emerging. There is a quiet transformation happening inside you, even if you do not fully recognize it yet. Every time you question your anxious thoughts instead of automatically believing them, something shifts. Every time you pause before reacting in fear, something strengthens. Every time you choose presence over projection, a new version of you begins to take shape. You may think that freedom from worry is something far away, something that requires years of practice or a perfectly stable life. But the truth is much simpler and much more powerful. The version of you who lives with less worry is not a distant fantasy. That version is already emerging in the moments you choose awareness over anxiety. For most of your life, worry has felt like part of your identity. You may have even described yourself as someone who overthinks everything. You may have believed that this is just how you are wired. You may have accepted that constant mental tension is part of being responsible or intelligent. But what if that identity is not fixed? What if it is simply a pattern that has been repeated for years? Patterns feel permanent only because they are familiar. The Buddha taught that what you call self is actually a collection of habits, thoughts, and reactions constantly changing. There is no fixed identity locked in place. You are not permanently an anxious person. You are someone who has practiced anxiety, and anything practiced repeatedly can be practiced differently. This realization is liberating. If worry is a habit, it can be weakened. If overthinking is a pattern, it can be interrupted. If fear has been your default response, awareness can become your new one. Right now, you are not the same person you were years ago. You have grown, learned, and evolved. In the same way, you are capable of growing beyond the identity of constant worry. But growth does not happen through force. It happens through gentle, consistent shifts in awareness. The version of you without constant worry does not mean a life without challenges. It means a life where challenges do not automatically trigger panic. It means a mind that sees uncertainty without assuming disaster. It means a nervous system that does not stay in survival mode unnecessarily. Imagine waking up without immediately scanning for potential problems. Imagine making decisions without mentally rehearsing worst-case scenarios for hours. Imagine speaking your truth without imagining rejection in advance. That version of you is not unrealistic. It is a result of gradually retraining your relationship with thought. Each time you observe a worry and choose not to feed it, you strengthen that emerging version of yourself. Each time you say, "This is just a thought, not a certainty," you weaken the old pattern. Each time you breathe through uncertainty instead of fighting it, you build resilience. Change often feels slow because it happens subtly. You may not notice dramatic shifts overnight, but over time, the gap between a triggering event and your reaction begins to widen. Where there was once instant panic, there is now a pause. Where there was once catastrophic thinking, there is now curiosity. Where there was once tension, there is now a small breath of space. That space is powerful. In that space, you have choice. Choice is the foundation of transformation. Without awareness, you react automatically. With awareness, you respond intentionally. The more you practice returning to the present moment, the more stable you feel. You realize that most of your fears were projections, not realities. You begin to trust your ability to navigate life step by step, rather than trying to predict every twist. There will still be moments of worry. The mind does not become silent forever, but the intensity changes, the duration shortens, the identification weakens. Instead of drowning in anxiety, you observe it. Instead of believing every fearful prediction, you question it. Instead of letting it dictate your behavior, you choose consciously. This is how the new version of you takes shape. You also begin to treat yourself with more compassion. Instead of criticizing yourself for worrying, you acknowledge it gently. You understand that the mind developed these patterns as a form of protection. You thank it for its intention, but you no longer allow it to dominate. Compassion accelerates growth. Harsh self-judgment reinforces anxiety. When you are kind to yourself in moments of fear, you create safety internally. That safety reduces the urgency of worry. As this transformation unfolds, you notice shifts in your body as well. Your shoulders are less tense, your breathing is deeper, your sleep improves. These physical changes reflect internal balance. Your nervous system no longer lives in constant anticipation of threat. The emerging version of you trusts more and fights less. Trust does not mean ignoring risk. It means recognizing your ability to adapt. It means remembering that you have survived every previous uncertainty. It means acknowledging that growth often follows discomfort. You start to see challenges differently. Instead of seeing them as signs that something is wrong, you see them as part of the human experience. You realize that everyone navigates uncertainty. You are not uniquely burdened, you are human. This understanding reduces isolation. It reduces the feeling that you are alone in your struggle. The more you step into this new version of yourself, the less urgent the future feels. You stop needing guarantees before acting. You stop postponing peace until everything is resolved. You stop trying to eliminate all risk before moving forward. You begin living. Living does not mean controlling every detail. It means participating fully in what is present. It means allowing yourself to experience joy without bracing for loss. It means allowing yourself to take action without demanding certainty. The version of you without constant worry is not careless. It is grounded. It is stable. It is adaptable. It understands that life is unpredictable, but survivable. This version of you is not created in a single decision. It is cultivated through daily practice, through small moments of awareness, through repeated returns to presence. Every time you choose not to spiral into imagined disaster, you strengthen this identity. Every time you release what you cannot control, you reinforce freedom. Every time you soften your grip on the future, you step closer to peace. You are not trying to become someone entirely different. You are uncovering who you already are beneath layers of habitual anxiety. There has always been a calmer part of you. There has always been a steadier part of you. There has always been a wiser part of you. You are simply giving it more space. And as you do, something remarkable happens. Worry stops defining you. It becomes a passing visitor instead of a permanent resident. You begin to see yourself not as someone trapped in anxiety, but as someone evolving beyond it. And in that evolution, you discover a new kind of strength. Not the strength of constant vigilance, not the strength of rigid control, but the strength of quiet trust, the strength of grounded awareness, the strength of knowing that even in uncertainty, you are capable. That version of you is not in the future. It is emerging now, with every conscious breath, with every mindful pause, with every moment you choose peace over panic. And as that version grows stronger, worry loses its foundation. Because you no longer need it to feel safe. You have become your own stability. After everything you have reflected on, one truth becomes clear. Worry was never your protector. It was never the force holding your life together. It was never the secret ingredient behind your survival. It only felt necessary because you became used to carrying it. You thought tension meant responsibility. You thought overthinking meant intelligence. You thought bracing for the worst meant being prepared. But now you see more clearly. You see that most of your suffering came not from life itself, but from fighting life in advance. You see that you were exhausting yourself trying to control what was never fully yours to control. And the most powerful realization of all is this: you were always stronger than the future you feared. You survived every uncertain chapter before. You adapted to every unexpected turn. You endured moments that once felt impossible. Not because you worried perfectly, but because when the moment came, you responded. Life has never asked you to carry it all at once. It has only ever asked you to walk it, step by step, moment by moment, breath by breath.